just the basics of the system is what we'll be looking at today. I am noticing something a little funky when I'm in here, and I'm wondering if it's because, let me see something really fast.
Okay.
In my control, I'm going to stop my recording. Clicks and your site, just so I can show you some areas that have already been filled in. I think it's a little bit easier to visualize versus just seeing things blank. So right now I'm in the dashboard. This is the home page. If you ever need to come back to this page, you can use the house icon in the top left-hand corner. And then from here, this area is comprised of 3 different dashboards. We have our membership dashboard. This is going to list all of your different member types. I'm going to toggle over to the member click side of things really quickly just to show you this. So here's an example of all the different member types we could have in here. Of course, this would be full and life and so on. Then we would have a lapsed category and an active category. Now the graced and pending are both optional. We can either have those or not. So if you have a grace period, the grace period column will show up. If you require approval before a member can become a member, then a pending column will show up. Now most of the time we won't see the pending column because most associations I work with do not require approval before members can become members. But the grace column is very typical, especially if you have a grace period, which I think you said that you guys maybe needed to talk about on y'all's end to see what that would be. I think is what had been mentioned. So that's just everything in here. Your members will be divided out into the different member types. We can click into one of these. It's going to take us to a profile list. We're going to review this profile list and what we can do with this profile list here in just a bit. But I'm going to go back to our home page first by just selecting my home button. We also have new members in the last 90 days. This is just a built-in membership board that you can access those new members because we know how important it is to engage with those members quickly and frequently, just to reiterate those membership benefits that they're gaining by being a member with you. Okay. Then we have the event dashboard. So this is going to pull from our forms. We're going to create event registration forms together during one of our trainings. The next one's content, so generally forms is the 3rd training. And that training, like I said, we'll create those event forms if we need to. They're going to pull into this event dashboard so we can see the past 3 events that have taken place, the dates they were on and who attended or how many attended. And then we can see 3 upcoming events, the dates that they were held on, and how many people have registered for those events so far. And then lastly, we have our financial dashboard, and that's going to include the aged receivables and sales over time graphs. So the aged receivables is just going to show you how many outstanding invoices you have, by how many days and how much money. So if we're current, this shows us there are $200 in current invoices that need to be paid, meaning that they have not expired yet. Down here at the bottom, we have $965 that are 91 days plus overdue, meaning these are way overdue. Now, this is just a test site that we work in, so of course you're going to see some funky things like this in here. If you ever saw this on your end, you would definitely want to follow up with those members that owe those invoices and get that money. Lastly, we have the sales over time. And so this is going to show us, if we look at our revenue account filter, by revenue account, how much money has come in per month. So this will just kind of show us a chart of where that money's coming in at, or what month that money's coming in at. Okay. Do you have any questions over this homepage?
No, that's pretty self-explanatory.
Okay, awesome. The next thing I'd like to review are our account settings. So we can go ahead and put some of these things in place. There are some additional questions in the document as well. So I just moved under settings and account settings. I'm going to go back into yours to do this. Okay. And so right off the bat, we have your account information. This is going to include your account number. So when you are ready to graduate and you've moved over to the help team is going to ask you for your account number. You don't have to memorize it or write it down. It's located right here. This is also going to show you how many custom profiles and prospect profiles you've used. So once I've imported your database, you'll be able to keep really good track of how many members you have in here.
Okay.
Then we have our time zone. And I can just peek at that really fast so that I don't have to even ask you that. I know that I wrote all of these things down, and unfortunately, as of right now, those things are not recoverable because I had taken them home with me. So I may have to ask you a couple things, but you would be, since you're in Oklahoma, you would be on Mountain Time or Central Time? Central Time. Okay. Great. Central. Okay. Your membership year begins January 1st. Is that right?
Our membership year is rolling.
It's an anniversary.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So right now I'm going to leave this at January 1st in the account settings area, but I can change it to an anniversary year when I set up your member types. Then we have your member number. So we are going to go ahead and automatically create member numbers for your members as they're added to the system. We can hide this number from their profiles. So if you don't want them to know their member number, they don't even have to know it exists. And I can just talk, but here I like to leave this on because it's just a good system attribute and it's a really good way for me to import your members. So I leave it on here, but we can turn it off somewhere else and I'll show you where that is later on. And you use QuickBooks, is that right?
We do not use QuickBooks.
Okay, so I'm just going to toggle off our QuickBooks button. The notification, so when you fill out that account settings form or document, this is just going to be when automatic notifications come from the system. Those people, your members are going to need a person to reply back to in case they have a question. So this email address would be where those replies go back to.
Okay, do you want that now?
Sure.
It's Toni, T-O-N-I, Slagle, S-L-A-G-L-E. The S is in Sam. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. You said S-L-A-G-L-E?
Yes. At gmail.com.
Okay.
Sorry, my Oklahoma slang comes out sometimes.
You are totally fine. That's interesting. I'm actually working with somebody else named Toni, and I had never heard that. Is it short for something? Do you know?
We have two Tonys here. We have a Toni.
Really?
Yeah.
I love that. That's awesome. And then
from name, should we just put like Oklahoma Council of Teachers of Mathematics, or should we actually put her name in there?
Honestly, this is typically optional. Most people, for some reason I've noticed, don't put anything in there because sometimes, I mean, you could just put your association name. I would just put your association name because who is actually sending the email or who may be replying back to the email may be different every time.
Right.
But if you would like to put a specific person, then we can change that.
Okay. Just 1 second, Adrienne, okay?
Okay.
Conference call. Can I call you back in a little bit? Love you, bye. I love you, bye. Sorry, he's calling me from Africa.
Oh my goodness. Is that son or husband?
Husband.
Oh, what is he doing in Africa? How neat.
He went a week before me.
Oh, that's right. You're getting ready to go. Oh,
That's
going to be so much fun. What are y'all doing there? Do you just for vacation?
Well, I'm mixing vacation and work. I'm going to try and establish some relationships there with some local schools.
Oh, wow.
So that I can do a sabbatical there in a couple of years.
Wow. That is amazing. How awesome is that? And do you already have some schools kind of lined up to talk to, or are you just going to kind of get there and...
Yeah. We have one private and one public school that we're going to...
Oh, good luck. That's going to be awesome. That's going to be so great. What a great place to vacation, and why not while you're there get a little bit done too. That's awesome.
Warm. It's freezing.
Yeah. Is it? What's the temperature there right now?
It's like 28 degrees.
Ooh, that's too cold for me.
Yep.
That's too cold for this Atlanta girl. I'm like, I want to say it's probably gotten down into maybe the 40s this weekend, and I've been complaining that I'm cold all week. I'm a pansy. I can't handle the cold. Sometimes I'm like, I really wish we could experience, real seasons, and then winter comes, and I'm like, let's move to Florida. That's funny. Well, that'll be great to be warm, get out of the cold for a little bit. So this billing contact information up here is just for MemberClicks purposes. Okay. Awesome. Any questions on any of those account settings?
No, that looks pretty straightforward.
Okay, great. So now let's jump into the financial piece a little bit. To work under financials, I'm just going to use my financial tab and go into invoices. And this is where you'll be able to access all of the invoices that are created in your system. Right now it's kind of hard to see, so I'm going to use my MemberClick side, and I'm going to go into the invoices here, and you'll be able to see all of the invoices that have been created in the system.
Okay.
These are organized by invoice number, the type, first, last name, and organization, the status, whether it's open, paid, or voided, the total amount, the due date of the invoice, and then any actions like viewing or voiding. If I go in here and view one of these open invoices, actually that's a credit memo, so that's not a good example for me to use. This is very similar to the way your invoices will look in the system and the way your members will receive them. Of course, your logo will be in the top right-hand corner, and your information will be in this left-hand corner.
Okay.
And then we can do a couple things from here. I'm also going to point out, note this notes section, I'm going to point out where you can add notes into the invoice. We can download this invoice, print it off, send it through the mail. We can void the invoice. We can create a credit invoice. We can also pay the invoice. So if one of your members pays offline, they send you a check. You don't have their credit information. You can actually just do an offline payment. Instead of cash, just say it's a check. And then you can put in the reference or the check number, date received, all of that information, submit the offline payment, and then boom, you're done. The invoice will show paid. Okay, and that would only be if your members had the option to pay offline. If you want to force them and only allow them to pay online, then they would have to pay right then and there with whatever they have completed, within the form, whether it's an event or membership. You can also add a notes section in here. So I love this because if you void an invoice, I know for me, 10 seconds later, I would completely forget why I voided it, what I was doing, all of that stuff. So you can add in comments here and save the comment. So you can always come back to this and kind of give yourself a reminder as to why you voided the invoice. You can also view the member's profile that this invoice belongs to from here by selecting the View Profile icon. This brings us directly to the profile, and I'm going to show you in just a bit what these profiles are comprised of, how they're made up with the organization. Okay. We can also select an invoice, so we can search a specific invoice number. We can tag it. We can email it. It's going to give us an opportunity to email it to the email they have on file, or we can add another email recipient. Once again, we can create those PDFs and print it out. We can also void, and then lastly, I can sort all of these invoices by which ones are open. If I select open, now all of these are open. Paid, now, and I have to unselect open. Now all of these are paid. We can select paid and voided, and it's going to tell us all of those. So we have a lot of different ways we can sort our invoices as well. Do you have any questions on this invoice page? No. Okay, awesome. All right, great. So then the next item that we want to peek at is our invoice template. So this is going to be a piece of homework that I'll assign. Obviously, in your side of things, you don't have any invoice templates created yet. So to create a new invoice template, there's a reason we have different invoice templates. One of the reasons is because so we have notifications that are going to go out to remind your members to pay their dues. But if you gain a new member, and they have a new member status, then we'll need additional notifications to go out letting them know they need to pay that new invoice as a new member. If you have an event registration, you need invoice notifications going out reminding your member to pay the invoice for the event they registered for. So the dues renewal is covered, but any other kind of invoice that's created in the system is not covered. So we would want to create an invoice template. We would want to name the invoice template, so we could call this events. We can choose when this invoice is due, by from how many days the invoice is created, 15 to 90, so 30 is typical. I mentioned to note where the notes field was on the invoice. That's this footer information. Anything you put in here is going to show up in that notes field. We can set this as a default. We do want to have at least one default invoice template. That means that if you ever forget to select what invoice template to use, instead of just nothing going out and nothing working, it'll just go to the default.
Okay.
And then lastly here we can set up those new invoice, this new invoice email, letting them know they have a new invoice. You would just toggle this on, edit the email, and then add in any verbiage in here. And it's already updated the from and to, or reply to. We can also turn on reminder emails 1 to 7 days from before the invoice is due.
So when you're saying before the invoice is due, so like when their membership is about to expire, it's going to create an invoice for them and send it to them?
Yes. But that's a little bit different. So those would go with the dues renewal notifications, and that's that special document that I gave you. That goes in a special place. But yes, we can set up when the dues renewal comes up with their dues renewal period. If you want them to receive their first dues renewal on 2 months before their expiration date, when that 2 months comes up, the system's going to automatically create an invoice for every single member in the system within that member type. Of course, yours is anniversary, so it's a little different. It won't all be at once. It'll be kind of a rolling date. But it'll be able to, it'll create the invoice for them, and it'll send it out with the email. Does that make sense, that process? Okay. So then I also mentioned, so this would be for something different. This would be more for anything else other than dues renewals. Because we have the dues renewal notification set up somewhere else. This would be like for an event, like if somebody registers for an event in a form, we need some notifications to go out to that person reminding them to pay their invoice for the event registration they signed up for. So this is where we could do that. We could say, hey, an invoice has been created for you for registering for this event. Please make sure you pay by the end of the month or something like that.
For example, our conference registration. So if someone wants to register for the conference, but they want to pay at the conference, or they want to pay separately or send in a check, then we can just create an invoice and have an invoice template that's going to say, to remind them, hey, you need to pay your conference dues by blah, blah, blah time.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And then you can set up that reminder, the past due notification, then also a payment notification.
Okay, great.
Okay. So that's just a little piece of homework, and we'll definitely recap this together. So if you have any questions or just don't get it for anything, then we'll always be able to walk through it together. Then we just have some invoice settings. So this is where I'll import your organization logo, so it'll appear on the right-hand corner in the invoice. I'm going to go ahead and plug in your contact information. This will show up at the bottom of the invoice. Or I'm sorry, this will show up in the top left-hand corner of the invoice. And then the invoice number allows us to choose what invoice number we want to start on. So if you want to pick back up on from your last invoice number that you were doing in your existing system, or if you just wanted to start at 1 or 1,000 or 10,000, whichever, it really doesn't matter what we start on. You can just let me know and I can plug that in there for you.
Okay, great.
Okay. Awesome, and I just got your logo. Okay, so then revenue accounts. After I receive all of your revenue accounts, I'll add them in here for you. So if I wanted to add a new revenue account, we can fill out all of this information, such as the account name, the sale debit account, or if it's a sale credit account. Generally, when I create these, I just put in the account name, and then I'll put in whether it's a dues account or not. But you can get more specific with these if you would like to, as far as telling the system exactly if it's credit or debit.
When you're talking about revenue accounts, talk to me a little bit about what that means.
Yes, of course. So a lot of the associations I work with work in QuickBooks. Mm-hmm. You do not work in QuickBooks, that's fine, it doesn't matter. So you have different places that your money gets filtered into. So for membership dues, you have a revenue account where you would tell all of the money for membership dues to go into. Oh. For that conference registration, you'd have like maybe a conference registration revenue account, and you would tell the money to filter into that account. That way, when you get ready to reconcile your accounts at the end of the year, you know where your money went and where it is. Does that make sense? Okay, that's a really simplified version. And if any accountant in the area heard me probably give that type of definition, they'd be mad at me. But that's how I understand it, and that's just a very simplified, I guess, definition. And I'll do this for you. Like I said, I just need a list of your revenue accounts. And then lastly, your payment processor. So you're using Moolah. So has Hart gotten in touch with you yet?
He's been in touch, or she, not sure. They're in touch with Tony, Portia, our treasurer.
Great.
So they've been communicating back and forth.
Awesome. So I'll just put this in here as a placeholder, but when your information and account has been completed, your login and security key will be in here.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So the next portion I'm going to kind of walk through a little bit quickly since your members are not in the system yet. So we are going to review member types and attributes. I think I already talked a little bit about attributes, but to talk back to it, you're going to hear the word attributes a lot in our system because they do a lot. They're involved in forms and content and the social community. It kind of is in every subject that we're going to discuss. So an attribute is just something that describes me that you've saved in my profile. So like my name is Adrienne, my name is an attribute of who I am, and you would want to have that information saved in my profile so you know that about me. We have 3 different types of attributes in the product. So we have built-in attributes. Those are those things that we know you're going to collect on your members because we've seen them collected on members over the 1,600 different organizations that we've worked with. That's things like name, email address, physical address, phone number, company, stuff like that. Then we have system attributes. System attributes, we can't touch those, meaning they are what they are. We can't get rid of them. There's no manipulating or adding on. It's just expiration date, member number, what else am I thinking? Member type, groups, which controls permissions in the system. It's just things that the system uses to keep track of your members' membership period, how much they owe, all that kind of stuff. So those are system attributes. Then we have custom attributes. So when I look at your database, you mentioned that region is really important. Region is something that we don't already have built into our system, but we know that it's important for you to collect. So I can create a custom field to collect that information. So that's where we can begin to kind of customize our database, what you're collecting and what you're not collecting, and how you're collecting it. So under attributes, these are all the built-in attributes. So we're going to walk through these together after I've imported your database just to make sure that they're up to date. But just to give you an example, we can do a little bit of manipulating with the built-in attributes. So like if we look at the phone number, this is going to show us different labels, meaning you can collect up to 5 different phone numbers for any one particular member. So I can add labels. So let's say that you have a home address. We can also add like maybe a main, maybe a work, maybe a cell, maybe a fax.
Okay.
So you can collect all 5 of these different phone numbers on your members if you need to. Now, just glancing at your database, I don't think that yours is going to be as extensive as having all of these different labels, but it is an option. So if you ever change your mind later down the road and say, well, I really should have been collecting, our members' work phone numbers, then we can always come back in here and add that. Whatever we have in here is what we're going to pull into our forms to create the forms for your membership application, event registration, all of that information. And if we want the information we're collecting in the form to be tied back to your member's profile, it would either have to be a custom attribute or a built-in attribute. So like what we looked at here. The custom attributes are going to be at the bottom. And what I'll do is come through here and add each different custom attribute. Maybe I'll add a region. And then there are different ways we can collect this information. And once again, this will make a little bit more sense when we get to forms. Some of them are pretty intuitive, like you would just say, well, region, am I collecting a country? No. Is that a date or time? No. Is this a file, like maybe a resume? No. Is it an image, like a headshot or a logo? No. Is it a number? No. Now, selection set, go ahead.
Oh, maybe a selection set.
Yeah, I think selection set would be best. And the reason why is because selection sets are really easy to search on in your system, and I'll show you what I mean. Will you give me just an example of one of those regions?
Yeah, we have 8 regions. Let me look on the website real quick, and I can tell you the names of those. I'm sorry.
Okay. No, you're fine.
I guess they're just, oh, here we go. Okay. So District 1, we have 10 regions. Maybe. Let me check. Yeah, there are 10 regions. So there's
Okay.
the Northwest region is Region 1.
So would
And
you want it to say north, you said northeast?
Northwest. And it would say Beaver, it has a list of cities.
So we might want to add in the list of cities. What I generally do for that is and I've come across this actually a lot, we can create a document that will list all of the cities, and we can link to it on the form. So when your members are filling out the form, if they don't know what city their region is in, then you can say, like, please, if you are not sure of what city your region is located in, please take a look at our helpful resource to find out. And then they can click on the link, and it will bring up a page showing all of the cities in the different regions that they're in. Does that sound like a solution?
Yeah, that's a great solution.
Okay, great. So we have like Northwest, Region 1.
And then Region 2 would be North Central.
And if you want these to just read Region 1, Region 2, then we can change that as well.
I think it's helpful to actually have the name of the region on there with the region. That's
okay. Cool. Did you say you had another one? I'm sorry, did you say the other one?
Northeast.
Northeast, and that's Region 3.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then East, which is Region 4. Southeast is 5. This is pretty user-friendly.
Good. It has its quirks, though. So, I mean, there's just going to be some, every system has some quirks.
And then South Central, which is Region 6.
Region 6.
Mm-hmm. Southwest is Region 7.
Goodness. Okay.
And Region 8 is Central.
Okay.
Region 9 is Tulsa Public Schools.
Wait, what's Region 9?
Tulsa Public Schools is Tulsa.
Tulsa.
Public Schools. And that's Region 9, and then there's only one more after that.
Okay.
And that's Oklahoma City Public Schools. And that's Region 10.
Great. Oklahoma City Public Schools, Region 10.
Mm-hmm. That's all of them.
Awesome. What? Do you work in the school? You work in the school systems, is that right?
I actually work at Oklahoma State University, but a lot of our members are classroom teachers.
Okay, gotcha. I had, when I was in college, I did the Disney College program, if you're familiar with that, and so I worked at Disney World, and one of my roommates she lives in Oklahoma, and she was just one of my best friends, and she was a huge OKC fan, and I think she might have ended up going to college there, but she hadn't quite made it that far yet, so I wasn't sure. But cool. Okay. So we've got these saved in here now. So there are a couple other things that we'll need to do with these, but just to kind of show you an example and to not get ahead of ourselves, I just wanted to have this example so I can show you how easy it is to search on a selection set versus some of those other options. Just to kind of walk through the rest of the options, we also have, if it's a state, we also have just a text box people can type in, and then website. Text boxes, to me, are the hardest to search by because somebody can write in anything. So what do you even search on? You type in the letter T, and any selections are going to come up where anybody might have typed in the letter T. So for me, if it's something that you want to search by, I definitely would recommend doing the selection set. Something else we can do with our selection sets is you'll notice that this is the example of how it'll look, but we can change this. So this is exactly how it'll look on our form. This is a radio button and they can only select one. We can also do a single select, meaning they can only select one, but a drop-down menu. And so we can choose one of these. And then we also have multiple selection, meaning they can choose 2, 3, or just one choice, so they can check all that apply. And then we can also have another multiple select. However, this one is a select box where they can choose 1, 2, or 3.
Okay.
Cool. So to show you where these show up in our profile, and just to kind of give you a heads up, not today, after your members have been imported, we'll need to go through attribute security and profile owner attribute security. So what that is on the front end, when your members log in, they'll be able to access their profile. And they can update their personal information, which is really easy for you because anytime somebody needs to make an update, they're not having to reach out to you or somebody else on your team. They can just do it themselves. However, we need to kind of limit what they can see and what they can't see, meaning what attributes can they update, what attributes can they not update but see, and then what attributes can they not see or that are hidden from them, period. For example, you want them to be able to edit maybe things like their phone number and email address to make sure those are always up to date, but you don't want them to be able to edit things like system attributes such as their member type or status, because you don't want them to be able to set themselves from lapsed to an active member. So that would be an example of something you'd want them to see but not edit. And then lastly, you may have an internal notes column where you just keep notes on that member for your own personal information. We can hide that from them altogether so they don't see any of those notes. So that would be a case where you wouldn't want them to be able to edit or see it. Okay? We also have an attribute security because your members will be able to network. They can view each other's profiles, so we'll need to kind of limit what they can see within those profiles. But once again, we'll do that once your members have been added in. One other thing I want to peek through are the member types. So I'm just under database and member types. I'm going to set all of this up in here for you. I'll create your account settings and default notifications. And then I'll also type in what your different member types are. You'll never have to work in here, but I always like to kind of show where I'll be working, and I'll go back through this once these have all been added. And if you ever need to change or add a member type, you can just call into our help team and they can do that for you, just because it's a little bit more like you want to make sure it's done the right way. You don't want any room to be unsure on anything, since this has to do with how much your members are paying. But just to kind of walk you through, if I edit these member settings, it gives us some options. So we can require approval for the new member, meaning that they have to be approved before they can become a member. All of those custom attributes that we create, not all of them have to apply to all your member types. So if you only need to know the regions for your full members and not for your life members, then we can assign the custom attribute, region to this specific member type, and we wouldn't apply it to another member type. So that way their profiles aren't cluttered with things that don't apply to them. I will set the member landing page. So this is what they'll land in when they log into the site. I always set this to a cute little name tag that you'll see that'll data merge their information in, greet them personally, and then they can access their profile and all of the social community features from there. Okay. This is an example of where we will choose one of our invoice templates. I guess I forgot to save my invoice, events, but when we get ready, if you have a dues invoice template, we'll want to set that in here. We'll we'll set the payment processor, and then we'll set the revenue account. Okay. This tells us that they're on a period of time, meaning it's an anniversary, and that their membership period is defined as 1 year from the day that they've signed up. We'll be able to turn on their grace period if they have one of those, and list how many days or how many months. And then lastly, we'll set how much their membership is down here at the bottom. So it's really easy for you to update this price if you ever need to make a change to your members, and I'll make sure that you know how to update that if you need to. Okay. Okay. And I'll be doing that part. And then the notifications, just to give you a peek at what they'll look like. This is where I'll add in all of those notifications. So I'll just tell the system, I want to add a new renewal notification, and I want this notification to go out 15 days prior to the renewal period or prior to their expiration. So then we would put in a message, we have some pre-written verbiage for you that I've sent in that document. So you just can make some small edits, or you can scratch all that and just start fresh.
Okay.
And I'll do the same thing with grace periods and lapse, and then we can also set up a payment confirmation. And if you have auto renewals, we can set up a payment failure as well, although there are some additional fees if you set up auto renewals. So most of the time I've just noticed that associations don't do that. I think it also can be a little bit of a headache having to keep up with which credit cards have canceled and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so that's just where I'll be inputting all that. I know I kind of went through that pretty fast, and we'll view it or visit it again, but do you have any questions on that?
No.
Okay, awesome. The last thing that I want to peek at is our profile list. Before I do that, I want to go ahead and point out this teal or aqua question mark down here in the bottom right-hand corner. If you select this question mark, you can do, oh, I'm in member clicks, I'm sorry. Let me go back to you. You can log in as a, hey, let me get out of there. Yes, I do not want a tutorial. Anything that you see in teal, we're trying to make this like you're assigned to know that that is a help resource. However, this has got me stuck. Hold on one second. Let me see if I can fix this. I think it's just because I got member clicks open. Let's try this one. So the teal question mark, we're going to select it. It's going to give you an option. I wonder if it's because it's just noticing that hasn't done this in the past. It's going to give you an option to take you to our resource center. It's also where you can submit requests for the help team. I'll definitely show you this next time. I think it's just I've got too many things up, and so it's just mad at me. I think it's just mad at me is what it is. I really want this to work so I can show you right now. We got it. I have no idea. It's just angry at me. I'll make sure I show you before our calls. But yours will only have one option as an AS. It'll say like ASA member login, and that'll allow you to get to the back end of the resource center. So I'll show you that definitely before we complete our time together, so you'll know where you can submit requests to the help team. It also has their phone number, and it's really just easy to use. We recently revamped it, and it's much easier to use now. Some other things we can look at, we can go to our profile list. And so this is going to be where all of your members are located. So we can use our advanced search feature to search our different members. Of course, right now you don't have anybody in there. But when you do, you can search by all of these different things. So by attributes. So in this scroll down, for example, there should be region that I saved in here. Did I not save it? Oh, I guess I did not hit the save button. That's disappointing. Oh, I know exactly why. I need to set those that new to, because you guys are admin, I think. Save. Now let's try. There it is. So now it's like I can search your members by region, and then we can choose a value of what region we want to search by. Anybody that applies to North Central Region 2, we can search, and that information will pop up for us in our profile list.
That's great.
So we can do that with any of our attributes. We can also do that with any of our form submissions, who's completed, who has not completed a submission of, and then we'll have a drop down of all your forms. We have a little bit of event management. We can mark whether your members have registered, did not register, canceled, attended, or no-showed your different events. We can search by those statuses. And then lastly, we can search by actual status, meaning if they're active, deceased, grace, lapse, or pending. Pending is if they require approval to become a member. We can also search by deleted profiles, just in case you ever accidentally delete a profile and you need to get it back. You always can. It's never going to be completely gone from the system. Once you receive the, let me get rid of this. Once we receive a members that we're ready to communicate with or do some type of action to, we'll select their profiles. In this case, I'm just selecting both of you, and then we can use our Actions drop-down button. We can either delete or undelete. We can add to groups or remove from groups. So two words that you're going to be hearing a lot, some more kind of like just terminology for the MemberClicks product is there are member types and then there are groups. Every time we create a member type, the system automatically creates a group for them as well. The member type controls how long their membership period is and how much they pay in their dues. The group controls their permissions in the system, like what kind of content can they see, what kind of things can they see in forms. The reason we have these in two different places is because a lot of times you may have a board of directors and you want to give them some permission to special content. You can't be a full school type member and a board of directors member. You can only be one member type at any given time. However, you can be in multiple groups at any given time. So we could put somebody in the full-time member group and in the board of directors group, and it's going to give them permissions to both of those things. So that's going to come up a good bit in our remaining trainings.
Okay.
We can change their member type, change their status. We can create an ad hoc invoice, so if anytime you need to create a miscellaneous invoice to collect money from someone, you can use this ad hoc invoice option. So for example, you're selling t-shirts, somebody bought a t-shirt for $25, you want to definitely document that in the system. So you just create an ad hoc invoice for them for $25, name the line item t-shirt or whatever you want to name it, and then you can send it to their email address to pay.
Okay.
We can export, so that's going to export your members to an Excel document to make it easier for you to navigate or dive in a little deeper. And then lastly, we can contact. Selecting contact is going to bring me over to the contact center, which we're going to go through more on our content training. But this is where you can email those members. I'm going to have some saved templates in here for you. Underneath our saved messages right now, I don't have any, but once the template, your actual template's done, I'll match the email templates to your template so the colors are consistent.
Okay.
And then you can plug those in, and you can also just write emails, and in here you can send this email now, or you can always send it at a later date and schedule it. Okay. We'll dive into this more on our next training. And then lastly, we can go into a profile. And there are a couple different things we can see in your members' profiles. The top left-hand box are those built-in attributes, things like their name, their organization, their email, their phone, and their physical address. So these are all the built-in attributes. The right-hand box are all of the system attributes, things like expiration date, member status, groups, member type, member number. Then at the bottom, we have a summary of all the built-in attributes and then the custom attributes. So this is going to show us both. If anybody wants you to edit this information for you, you can do that in here. Okay. They have, you have the opportunity, so they can set contact preferences on the front end, and you can view those contact preferences in their profile. I'll explain more of this in the social community training. Message history is going to be any message that's come out from the system to them. So if you want to take a look and see what kind of messages they've been receiving, you can look. Part of some other social community pieces, they can be part of e-lists or committees, so they can join either one of these. And then lastly, we have form submissions. And that's any form they've submitted. And then invoices, any invoice that's been created in their name.
Okay.
And I think that's everything. We can also see when their profile was created, the last modified date. You can view their history with you, which is just going to show you, you're set as a super admin. That's what that ASA is. Your status is active and your member type. View event attendance, so that's that kind of event management piece that you can add in. And then view latest changes to attributes. So if you start seeing a lot of changes and the information looks a little wonky or a little weird to you, you can see like, well, where did the information come from? So in this case, it's the system. But if it was the member who made the change, it would have their name. And if it was one of you or maybe another ASA, then you can peek and see if it was you or the other ASA who made that change. Okay, and that's kind of everything. Do you have any questions for me?
No, I mean, it's pretty straightforward, and I'm amazed that you guys can create something like this. It's going to make our lives so much easier.
Oh, I'm so excited to hear that. I love working with you guys because there are just so many. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have so much more free time, stuff like that. So it's always awesome. Well, would you like to go ahead and get down a content training, like maybe one day next week? You said you're going to be out of town next week?
Yeah, I'm actually leaving on Sunday, and I won't be back till the 31st. I'm sorry, till the 9th. But Jelena Utley said she would do the content training and make sure that I get the video.